All right, here we go. Newly named head coach, Buffalo. Wait, how do you say this? University at Buffalo.
That's right, the University at Buffalo.
Donnie Vinson, let me in. I was going to be in town for something else. I had to come by. Early on, I got into this room. I had to come back, though, because people want to know all about you and what brought you here to Buffalo. Let's just start there.
Yeah, that seems to be the big buzz. What would take me away from Cornell most significantly. And it comes back to my New York roots. Me going to a state school, I think Binghamton is a fantastic academic institution. And seeing what happened there underneath Coach Popolicio, I've always really wanted to go and start something like that, especially in with this as a small town and community, right? And when you start to get that local backing behind a big idea or a movement, which I've been preaching to pretty much everybody in the area for the last month, it gets really exciting, right? We haven't even hit the season yet, and I've got people saying, hey, I can't wait to come out to a duel. I can't wait to go to your camps. I can't wait to see what you're ready to go and throw out on the mat this year. All of that buzz, all of that excitement is things that I go and remember back in my old Binghamton days. So that kind of reminiscence of whatever it was that Coach Popolicio was able to go and cultivate there. I feel it almost to a T here in Buffalo. And quite honestly, if you're talking about just New York State powerhouses that have been created, and I'm going to reference Coach Cole, this sleeping giant really reminds me of Cornell in the late 90s, early 2000s, right, where they're really starting to take off with their support within their community, that small little Ithaca time, and all of this old money, if you want to say that, but it's still in relatively young hands, right? Buffalo is not an extremely old institution. It doesn't have the endowments that you would think of, where you would think, oh wow, this place is just littered with millions and billions of dollars. But we do have very powerful, very, very influential people that are excited to bring UB Wrestling to that next peak.
All right, so you've mentioned a couple big names there that you've had the privilege of being a student under in running a program, not just wrestling in a program, but Popolicio and what he's done and how he's come up, and then, of course, Rob Cole. So what are maybe one or two or three or five things that right off the top of your head that you're going to bring and implement as the CEO of this program now?
The term CEO is really on point with what wrestling landscape is today. If you would have said 10 years ago, how do you see yourself as a head coach, I'd say I'd like to continue to be in the room as much as possible to really have a hands-on situation with all of our athletes. Do I still want that? Yes, but is that the reality of what this position is? The 4 weeks that I've been injected into this position, it's not quite like that, right? That separation of what you are as an assistant coach, having all of those emotional connections, you name it, right? That really is what your assistants are for, and that's what I'm trying to find right now to replace what I recently was at Cornell at NC State. But ultimately, you got to kind of treat this like a business. As much as you don't want to hear that in college athletics, that's what it is with the landscapes. You've got to constantly fundraise. You've got to constantly find the big word is NIL deals. You name it. All of that focus has really turned into, these are the resources that I can officially get for my student athletes and implement it to them. Do they know that I'm putting all this work and effort behind the scenes to get them to it? And I guess ultimately I don't get the glory that I would have in a different program with being the assistant coaches that say, hey, here's your platter, go ahead and take whatever you want. No, but it's still very rewarding and exciting, right? Again, this is a fantastic institution where there are funds just being funneled into it, and when all of our student athletes ultimately get to go and reap the benefits, I hope that they ultimately do see, hey, this is the guy that kind of put this mastermind or this masterpiece together.
So the template is completely destroyed, right? I love this sport coming up through a set of rules and a 9.9 and all this other stuff that really limited the sport of wrestling, especially at the NCAA level. And you were a part of that as well. Are you nervous? Are you excited? The whole world has just blown up. Mm-hmm. To me, that's intimidating. As a fan, I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? It's exciting as a fan, but as a coach, what are your thoughts when it comes to, you mentioned NIL, right? You're talking about money now, and you're talking about making sure transfers don't transfer and they stay home.
Yeah, it's completely flipped upside down over the last 10 years, like you said. Fortunately, I've got zero experience being a head coach, so all of this, I feel like I'm pretty on par with everybody in my situation right now. I've heard countless horror stories of coaches who have been in it for 15 to 20 years where they're just like, this isn't what I got into, and I officially just don't like what it's really become. For me, this is all that I know as of right now, which is really exciting, right? I could have these astronomical dreams and this vision that I will ultimately never hit, but I'm going to have a really good time trying to chase those for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to mention, obviously, John Smith, Nick Saban with football. It's like, let's just walk away from this. I'm just going to throw my hands up because it's not done that way anymore. So, again, a little intimidating, but, to your point, super exciting for somebody like yourself.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about support, right? Buffalo Wrestling kind of went from what's happening, at least from a fan perspective, what is happening over there. Things are kind of done maybe a little bit over the cover of darkness. And not there was a lot of stuff that was happening that a lot of people didn't see. And then all of a sudden you're named, right? What kind of support are you getting here?
The easiest way to say it is just unbelievable. I had an expectation coming into what everyone thought was UB Wrestling and possibly on the demise. That is not the impression that I got when I first came up here for our interviews. The facilities, when people are able to come and walk around, I would say that they are top notch. I've been at a Power 5 school down at NC State. I would say that we're pretty on par with that. Yeah, you see it a little bit more with their football and their basketball facilities, but the trickle-down effect, there isn't really any variance. Ultimately, I feel like I've got a lot of money for just our total operations. They've come to an agreement with my assistant coaches' pay, myself, right? Again, it would take a lot for me to come out of Ithaca, and that's ultimately what they did. They said, hey, if this is your dream, we want to help you achieve your dream, achieve all these goals. We also want you to have NCAA qualifiers, All-Americans, and national champs, which is what you have generally been able to produce at every spot that you've been to. So if you could just bring a lot of that talent, or at least experience here, with the resources that are already in play, then it really is a recipe for awesomeness.
All right, facilities. Listen, I live in Columbus, Ohio. I know what Ohio State's facility looks like.
Beautiful.
And everybody talks about it, right? Cornell, being wrestling specific only building, it blew away Ohio State, in my opinion. Okay, you got a cold plunge in there. You got all this wonderful stuff. Do you have any of that stuff here?
Yeah, we're actually fortunate enough to have everything in-house. Is it a standalone facility where it's just wrestling? No, but what we have is a venue that holds 5,000 people, which is a really appropriate size for wrestling. Like you said, Ohio State, when that thing got bumping and they kicked the tails out of Cornell last year, right? That was an electric environment. And ultimately, that is what Buffalo wants to bring here. They want to bring in the shows. They want to have the fire. They want to have the big Jumbotron up for our matches. They want us to have side events to go and bring in the local community again, whether it be a camp or clinic or a youth tournament, just to go and get 1,000 to 2,000 people in the stands, which when there's 1 million people in the area, that's really not a large number to go and try to target, which, that's, again, the perfect facility for what we have. Everyone says that you need a bigger room. Quite honestly, it's got enough mat space. It's got all the amenities that you need, and ultimately it comes down to the coach and knowing if they know what they're doing, which I think that I do, and the staff that I'm going to go and surround myself with, they will also know that. Outside of just the wrestling room, they just they're currently putting up another portion of the Murchie Center, which is just phenomenal. It's got racks upon racks. It's got the indoor, football training center, right? Field house, that's what it's called. Yep. I'm sorry. We're fortunate enough to be able to host our campus
right?
here. Yeah, all of that's new. I want to say it was just around $50 million, which again is just a testament to what UB is willing to put into their athletic department.
All right. So now let's talk about recruiting. One of the things I love to ask coaches, coming more from a parent perspective, but especially the wrestling mom perspective. Moms are going to give up their kids to come here, right? And I know what this program was built on, and I know what it's known for, right? Gritty, tough, blue collar, right? It's like, oh man, are you going to break my kid when you bring him here? But that's what wrestling's all about. What are you going to do with my son, with that wrestling mom's son from Central Ohio?
What you said isn't terribly off, right? This is a blue collar town that's part of the Rust Belt. We're the Nickel City, which, it's when we say all those things, you automatically think that this has to be a wrestling hotbed, whether it be Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or out in Ohio through all along the Great Lakes, right? That belt that we just mentioned. Ultimately, this is a wrestling town, or it's going to be a wrestling town. What I don't want you to think is that I am going to go and grind your kids into the ground and stuff. Yes, we're going to work really hard, but think of it as a training opportunity that you've probably never been open to, right, or ready to experience, just because I think it is that next generation of types of training, whether it be nutrition, strength training, wrestling in general. All of these facets have to go and work accordingly to go and create that best product. And then I got to go and take words out of Damian Hahn's mouth, right? We're never going to be able to replace the parent, but we're going to do the next best darn thing. All
right. Let's talk about the academics here. What are we studying when we're coming here? What are our students going to be looking to do?
Geez, you pick it. There's 30,000 students here. This is a massive state.
Say that again, 30,000.
Yeah, people don't realize how big the University of Buffalo actually is. And I've actually had two family members go and graduate from here. My sister, she got her JD MBA, and my dad got his executive MBA pretty recently, actually. So again, the prestige of the higher education portion of it should never be diminished, right? Again, this is part of the AAU certified institutions, which is just a massive research certification, pretty much. You most reference with the Big Ten schools, all of them have to be AAU certified, but fortunately the state, the University at Buffalo has that. So when you go and put that in perspective, right, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of opportunities at the flagship institution of New York.
All right. Tons of stuff that's going to be happening, right? Still early on in the game here. Thank you for letting me in early on this game, but I told you off the record, I know a lot of people are like, what's going on, man? I gotta know what he's doing. I gotta know what's going on up there in Buffalo. So you're gonna be making some announcements, some coaching, right? You're gonna be adding coaches to the staff here.
Yep.
What's kind of like the next month look like going into the off season, if you will?
Yeah, I have hired one coach that'll be coming out here pretty soon. I like to break everything down into what our training opportunity is, or what is our goal, right? For me to say that this is our week by week, I think that goes and overwhelms someone, because I have 1,000 things that I have to do every week. But if I go and break those tasks down for this ultimate goal, I think that alleviates that stress for me and what I am showing on my face. But ultimately, I painted out for these guys. Our first trip is going to be that U23, which is the start of June. We're excited about it. We're going to have a fairly small group, about 10 guys, which I think is appropriate with my first time going out and trying to wrangle all these guys up. And they're really excited about it. I think that right after the season, some of their dreams were squashed a little bit, and then they went right into the dark age of the hiring process, which is never fun for either party. But ultimately, I think that with the portal and the shaking out, I finally have this official first milestone of a class that I'm going to go and take through, which is really exciting. They seem to be all responding really well to my vision, like you said, which I keep hammering. This is what ultimately our goal is. Don't worry about what's happening right now, and just keep working towards that. You hear it a billion times. You hear about all these trigger words, enjoying the process, but that really is what it's about. Or if you don't do that, then you're going to get sucked up and chewed up and spit right back out, because it's a tough world. So, and you may have heard about it or heard it in our finishing portion there, right? Everything that you come in here to do, make sure that that's where 100% of your time and focus is, whether it be strength and conditioning, academics, because we're currently going through our final schedule right now, or wrestling, right? If you're, again, I've laid it out for our student athletes that this is finals week. This is the major point in the 5 years that you're here to go and get your degree. Make sure you're going and crushing that, because if you're unable to accomplish those goals, then you definitely won't be able to accomplish the goals in here.
All right, Coach, that's all I have. Listen, I could sit here and talk forever. I really appreciate you let me in and peeling back the curtain a little bit early on in your head coaching regime. What else do you have for us?
I hope you come back, right? And again, this is the early stages of whatever it is that we're creating here at UB. But I promise you, in 6 months when you come back, you're going to say, "Oh wow, he wasn't full of just smoke." It's I think that it's really exciting, and again, we've got a lot of support, and I really think that when you think of the sleeping giant, people are trying to say, "Well, what do you mean by sleeping giant?" This is one of the examples of what people would assume. And again, I'm going to give a lot of credit to a program like Little Rock, where they're just like, "Oh wow, this program was started up 5 years ago. They'll have a few NCAA qualifiers, but if you know Neil and his work ethic, you really knew what he was going to be able to accomplish in this short amount of time." Which again, it goes back to the Papalicios, the Rob Coles, all of these people that were able to go and stay focused on their end goal and look at the things that they've created.
All right, Coach, I'm excited for the future of this program. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.